Welcome back. My name is Steven Youngkin, and in this segment, we'll be talking about behaviors and the behavior attributes you can add in the Replic8 editor. Let's get started. So first off, I created this sample file in Max to show off all our behaviors in the Replic8 editor. And you can see the three on the left have our animated keyframes on them. So let's go ahead and bring up our Replic8 editor. And I just imported this in fresh. There's no behaviors on any of it. The first one we'll get into is Animated Detents. So let's come over here, click on the object. You can right click in here and we'll set our new behavior to Animated Detents. We'll hit preview mode and now we can see our animated object here going through the detents. So let's take a look at our attributes. Our animation tab here is animation time is 2 seconds, so it's taking 2 seconds between each one of these animations. We have trigger at, which allows you to trigger an event at any set time here, start, halfway, or finish. Interactivity is interactive is a true or false state, and you can have this where the user cannot click on the object during a lesson if you want them to focus on another part. You can lock while animating, true or false. If it's false, the user can click on it and it will continue to animate. Shown there. And we'll set that back to true. We got our runtime attributes, and under here is state. Right now we have 10 states because we have 10 detent percents, which is our default value that gets thrown out. So we can go to any one of these states and you can see it acting. We can do this manually. Let's go to the last one. And I'll show you general should loop if we have that to true. And we continue going on. When it gets to the last detent percent, it will snap into our very first detent percent, which is 0. So to go over this detent percent a little bit more, for this in Max, let's show you the Max animation. What I did in Max was have a keyframe at 0 and 100, so that's the animation that it's following. And what we're doing in the Replic8 editor is taking the detent percentage and putting it into Replic8 numbers. So actually there's a keyframe at 10, 20, 30, so it looks like that. And it's best if you use 0 to 100. Animation wise, if you use 0 to 1000 for example, 10% of your detent percent will be the 100th keyframe. So just keep that in mind if you're gonna go ahead and animate something over the 100 keyframe mark in Max, or if you're gonna add more time to your objects. Now let's go to the next example here, which is a lever. It's a little bit more complicated. So we'll come over here, right click on our object, Animated Detents, come over to preview mode, and you'll notice the default value is not going to work for this. And this is the case where we need to come back into our properties here and go ahead and change our values. And I'm getting these values from our max keyframes because I took my animation from 0 to 100. So I have my keyframes written down, put those in real quick for you. And when you're putting your numbers in, make sure to put a space. That's the way the Replic8 editor likes it. So keep in mind to put your space in after all these numbers. Enter when you're done. Now if we come through here, we'll see that our lever will now stop at all the correct states. Alright, now let's go down to our final lever here, and this one's pretty easy. We'll right click You can also come over to our Equipments tab here and right click on the name inside of the editor, the parts list here, and add behaviors that way as well. And here I know I only have 4% that I want to use, so I want to use 0, space 25, 50, 75, and 100. And let's come over here, preview button on. We'll run through this. And now you'll see that we have our lever working. Now you notice that our lever did not go around in a loop. Now this is a good example for that should loop feature. Now our object will loop. And how I got this to loop correctly was in our detents %, 0 and 100 is the same keyframe. So I copied that over from 0 and put that at 100, and that's how I'm getting my loop feature. So that covers animated detents. Let's come over to our next one, which is animated toggle, which is our basic form of point and click the animations. You'll probably be using this most of the time. So let's turn off preview mode, click on our lever, and we'll add a animated toggle to this lever. Come into preview mode, and we'll just click on it, and it'll toggle through our animation that we set up in Max. So with that, we'll go into our attributes, and you'll notice we have our animation time, which is 2 seconds for the animation to complete. We can change that number to be slower or faster. Trigger at was covered previously, and that just allows you to start an event at any time that you specify. Next, we have our animation start % and animation stop %, and this is useful for the next lever. I want to show you when we add multiple animations or multiple animated toggles because the object has multiple animations on it. Our interactivity, that is the same as the animated detents, is interactive true or false, is locked while animating true or false, and that just states that is interactive means you can click on it or not in a lesson, and lock while animating if you want the animation to finish before the user can click on it again. And for animated toggle, our states are 0 and 1, which is start and finish of the animation, shown here. Alright, now let's go in and add our animated toggles to our next lever, which has multiple animations. So let's come in here and put a new behavior, animated toggle. But before we go through with that, we're going to change the instance name to lever pull down. And remember, we can't have any spaces in here. There we go. So now our animated toggle is named lever pull down, and we have type is animated toggle. And I'll just show you that it will toggle through the whole animation, and that's not what we want. We want the lever to be able to be pulled down and then the next animation take off. So we'll come in here and we'll turn off preview mode, right click, and add a new behavior, and we'll add another animated toggle, but we will rename this to pull lever, no spaces, pull lever. We can also add underscores off. Now when we have these two animated toggles, I know in Max I set up my keyframe 0 to 50 for the first part of it, so the lever pull down, we can change our animation stop % to 50. Let's do that. We'll hit our preview, and now you see our lever will just pull up and down. Now we'll come into our pull off lever, and over here you'll see these boxes, and this signifies which is behavior is active on our object here. So we can click on that one, and you'll notice it snapped back to the up position. That just needs to be changed here in our animation start percent, and we'll have this one start at frame 50. So now you'll notice we have that, and if we hit the button, it will play the pull off part of our animation. Also note that you can come in here, right click on the object, and set the active behavior through here if you don't want to do it in your parts list shown here. So now we'll have our lever pulling up and down, and that is how you put multiple animations on an object with the animated toggle. Our next behavior is animated playback, and we'll go ahead and turn off preview mode. We'll click on our spinner here, and we'll add a behavior to our spinner called animation playback. I'll go ahead and play it. So animation playback works very similar to animated toggle, but you can have the animated playback already playing when you start a lesson, so it's not necessarily needs to be toggleable. And let me get into the behaviors to show you that. As you can see, that it's very similar to the animated toggle with animated time, which is 2 seconds for it to animate. We actually want the prop to spin a little faster, so we'll lower the time. Let's put it down to 0.5. You can trigger certain events again. That was covered with animated detents and animated toggle. It's the same thing. Animation start and stop percent are the same. If you want them to start at a certain frame, you can do that as well. Your current animation percent is just the full version of your frames. So we can hit frame 50 and it will move to frame 50. Frame 200. So on. Well, it only goes 0 to 100 because I only have the percent in here is 100%. We have our interactivity, which is the same as previous, and here's where we come into our new attributes, which is runtime attributes, play and pause. Here's where we can set up to where the object is being played, and we can also come in here and use this pause feature here. If it was slower, I'd be able to show you that. So let's put this slower just to show you an example. We'll hit true, then we can hit pause, and we can pause that way. And turn the pause off and it'll finish. So let's put this back down to 0.5. We'll hit play, and now we want this to loop. So now we can come under here in general and repeat, and that will loop our spinner, so it'll act like an airplane engine, and there we go. We have our prop that spins freely. Alright, let's turn that off. And that's off. Turn off our preview mode, and I just want to show you that the loop feature needs to make sure that your first frame is the same as your last frame for the loop feature to look correct, unless you have a case where you don't want it to loop like that. So let's come in here to the ball, and we'll turn that repeat to true, and now when we toggle it, it will snap back in place. That's what the loop's doing. It starts from the first frame to the last frame back to the first frame. So that's animated playback, and that covers all of our objects that have animation from it in Max. The rest of these behaviors do not have any animation in Max.